Yep, today we welcome back gladly Hope College Professor of Religion Steve Bouma-Prediger, also Hope Church member. And Steve serves on the RCA Commission of Theology, which prepared this paper, Welcoming the Strangers in Our Midst, that Steve is going to talk about today, and really authored. So we're very happy to have Steve. Thank you, Steve, for being here today.
Test? That's better. Okay. All right, technology, you can't live with it, can't live without it. Well, thanks for the opportunity to be with you this morning. And I'd like to start out with some introductions. Name and one thing you're looking forward to this spring. Before I talk about this document, let's just start there. I'm going to pick on front row here. Kevin, get us started. Larry, you got the mic?
Got it.
Okay. Who are you?
Hi, Steve. I'm Kevin Rosenau, and I'm looking forward to riding my bike.
All right. Preach it, brother. Me too. Who else? Just pass it around.
So I'm Dave Myers, and I'm with Kevin. I'm looking forward to not riding my bike in snow.
I can verify this. I'm his next door neighbor. And I've told David multiple times, you're at a point in your life you don't want to be riding your bike on the ice. I don't want to be visiting you at the hospital, with a broken leg or something. So, but to no avail. He's still biking all these years.
I'm Jenny Hoekman, and I'm looking forward to flowers.
Oh, yes. Got some over here.
I'm Joellen Hugerorf, and I'm looking forward to urban sketching outside.
Urban sketching outside. Sounds.
I'm Jane
weird.
Pettinga, and I wanted to say bike, but everybody else already said that. Putting my feet in the sand.
Ah, yes.
Bare feet.
Got a bicycle crowd here. I didn't realize that.
I'm David DeBlock, and I'm looking forward to walking down for sunsets.
Down from where you live, watching those sunsets. Did you see the one the other night? Straightest clouds with the light, pink and red and purple underneath. Spectacular. Takes your breath away.
My name is Jim Marshall, and I'm looking forward to listening to and singing with the birds.
Yeah, they really come back the last week or so. Yeah.
So I'm Mary Coster, and I'm looking forward to going up north and sitting on the deck by the river, watching the water flow by.
Up north, capital U, capital P. I hear it's another state.
Not that far.
Yeah, it has its own official name now. Yeah, up north. Where are you from? Up north. Who's next?
Deb Gensink, going out to the beach and collecting stones for my collection.
All right.
What stones do you like?
I like Michigan stone, lightning stones, the ones that are unique to Lake Michigan, and now our son is up north, so Lake Superior stones too.
All right. Anyone else?
I'm Bob Giroux, and I'm going to flip it. I'm wishing I were back down south where spring is happening.
And flowers are already blooming. Yeah. Have faith and hope, brother. They'll be coming here soon, we hope. All right. Thank you. All right, let me back up a little bit and talk about Reformed Church America commissions. Commissions are standing committees of the General Synod, established to advise the General Synod in particular areas of the life of the church. Currently, there are 11 General Synod commissions. Commission on Christian Action, Commission on Christian Discipleship and Education, Commission on Christian Unity, Commission on Christian Worship, Commission on Church Order, Commission on History, Commission on Judicial Business, Commission on Nominations, Commission on Race and Ethnicity, Commission on Theology, the one on which I sit, and then the Commission for Women. Interesting change in prepositions there. Commission on, Commission for Women. Commissions report to the General Synod, which is the gathering of ministers and lay people, faculty, staff, and so on every year. Rotates around different places. Each year they provide, the commissions provide a written report on their activities, along with any recommendations for action they wish the General Synod to consider. So, for example, 18 pages. This is a printout of the report from the Commission of Theology that was presented to the 2025 General Synod on a whole variety of different issues. So you could find all this stuff online. Commissions also receive assignments from the General Synod by means of recommendations approved by General Synod that are assigned to that particular commission. So commissions can generate business and take it to Synod. Synod can also generate business for each of the commissions and have them then report back to them. Commission on Theology, some background. 1958, that's a fair bit ago, showing my age. I was born around then. So General Synod, yeah, 57. General Synod was asked to give serious consideration to the establishment of a commission for the purpose of producing a document outlining the Christian faith of the RCA. The next year, 1959, the Committee on Confessional Interpretation recommended the creation of the Theological Commission. Let me get my words right here. The General Synod approved that in the 1959 meeting, and it became the Commission on Theology in 1980, when General Synod approved a rewrite of the General Synod bylaws and special rules of order. Membership. The 10 members of the commission must have competence in theology. First required condition. In addition, 10 members must include 2 members of the RCA seminary faculties, 1 General Synod professor, 2 members of Reformed Church America college faculties. That's how I got on, representing, obviously, teaching at Hope, one of the 3 Hope RCA colleges, along with Northwestern and Central colleges in Iowa. 2 members of RCA college faculties, 3 pastors, and 2 lay people. The Commission on Theology, its purpose, studies theological matters arising in the life of the church, referred to it by the General Synod, or, as I just said, initiated within the commission itself. Book of Church Order, Chapter 3, Part 1, Article 5, Section 9, if you want to look that one up. We meet 2 times a year, generally in February and September. Our last meeting was February 3 in Grand Rapids, an in-person meeting. Some examples of things that the Theology Commission has done recently. The Use and Abuse of Power in the Church, a brief bibliography. Brief, there's about 15 books mostly. Tim Alberta, Kingdom, the Power, and the Glory, American Evangelicals in an Age of Extremism. My friend Kristen Kobus-Dumais, Jesus and John Wayne, How White Evangelicals Corrupted a Faith and Fractured a Nation. Diane Langberg, When the Church Harms God's People, Becoming Faith Communities that Resist Abuse, Pursue Truth, and Care for the Wounded. Walter Wink, 4 books actually by Walter Wink. Naming the Powers, Unmasking the Powers, Engaging the Powers. That's a trilogy that goes together. Anyway, we put together this bibliography on the use and abuse of power. Here's the document, the Christian Doctrine of Creation that just came out. I was the primary author on that for reasons, since that's what I've been doing the last 40 years or so. Doctrine of Creation Outline. This is available also on the website. And then one you may not be aware of, but this final draft is now out, a Reformed theological examination of the purpose, function, opposition, and support of the separation of church and state in the United States of America. And that's reasonably short. Gosh, only 9.5 pages. But a fascinating document, preserving the church's spiritual integrity and mission, protecting religious liberty and conscience. Just a few of the subsections here on this particular document on church and state. Current members. And just last bit of information background. James Hart Brum is the chairperson of the Theology Commission. He's a faculty member at New Brunswick Seminary. Nathan Longfield is a pastor here in the Holland area. Lyle Bierma teaches church history at Calvin Seminary. Yeah, we even let in a CRC person. Go figure. Actually, we're required to have 2 folks from outside the RCA who serve as, quote, ecumenical observers. And one of those is Lyle at Calvin Seminary. William Ruggles Church, layperson, lives here in Holland. Micah McCreary, president of New Brunswick Seminary. Sarah Nielsen, another layperson, as am I. I'm not ordained. My wife's the reverend. I'm the layperson. Carmelo Santos is our other ecumenical observer from the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. He's a Lutheran theologian. Doug Skulton, RCA pastor in La Palma, California. Extra credit bonus points. Anyone could tell me where that is?
La Palma is what used to be Artesia.
I knew someone here would know that. Which is near what large city?
Long Beach.
Long Beach, okay. And Long Beach is one of those, 50 or so cities that surround Metro Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's only got 750,000 people, though.
Yeah, that's all. It's just a little suburb. Having lived in Pasadena for 4 years, I'm familiar with Southern California quite well. 12-lane freeways, traffic going maybe 20 miles an hour if you're lucky. Fortunately, we didn't have to commute by car. I did it by bike, downhill to seminary, uphill back home. It was a great way to commute. Avoid the freeways altogether. So Doug, it's near Anaheim, La Palma, near Anaheim, which is obviously Southern California. Sarah Talsma, faculty member at Northwestern College in Orange City. Matthew Van Maastricht, faculty member at New Brunswick Seminary. And Rob Whittington, layperson from Ohio. And we don't hold his Ohio State loyalty against him. All right, enough background about RCA Commission's Commission on Theology. Any questions? Answerable questions about any of that? Yeah.
Steve, it's very, very quickly, you referred to some of the members as laypersons. Are they required to be an elder?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. Don't hold me to that. You have to look up the fine print on that, but I don't think so. But, yeah. All right, welcoming the strangers in our midst was drafted and approved by the Commission on Theology in 2024 and presented to the 2025 General Synod. The General Synod voted to commend, technical language, receive, accept, and affirm for further distribution. Commend, welcoming, and make it available to all congregations, assemblies, and members of the Reformed Church in America. So that's what's going on in the denomination as we meet and as we speak. Other churches are, from what I hear anyway, talking about this document. Now, enough background. Let's take a look at the document if you haven't already. Do you need a minute or two to go through it, read it for the first time in some cases? I know we're live streaming, so you're not supposed to have a blank spot. But why don't we take a minute or so and just give you a chance, if you haven't read it already, to do so, or reread it if you already read it.
Steve Norton, if I may ask another question
Sure.
for clarification, when General Synod commends a paper to the churches, what kind of standing does that hold for the life and faith of Reformed Church in America members? Because I think there could be a misunderstanding that this paper becomes official doctrine of the RCA.
And my understanding is, could be others here, correct me if I'm wrong, is it's not official doctrine in that sense, but it's commended to the church, meaning this is serious, you ought to read it. Take it seriously. You meaning members of the RCA, different congregations, different classes. Question is, what struck you?
Judy Vanderwilt.
Hey, Judy.
It's a very timely message for today.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Sadly, in some ways.
First, this was extremely well written and a super informative gathering of insights. So that, when Jesus said, "I do what I see my Father doing," this was such a great vision of the Father's heart, and really pulled us in, so we can get caught up in some of the narrative of the Old Testament of the wrath of God, and not see the heart of God loving others and the stranger. And so this is a tremendous exhortation, this paper.
Thank you. I take no credit for it being well written. I was not the primary author on this one. I was the primary author on the creation piece, but still, it's a group work, and so, anyone who's ever written anything, it's always going to be better if 1 or 2 or 20 people give you feedback and make it a better paper. I require that of my students often in classes. Someone else reads your paper, it's going to make it better for you, you're going to get a better grade. It's a win-win. So thank you for that comment, but I'll pass that on to the commission next time we meet. Yeah.
David Alexander.
Yeah.
My comment is more stylistic. Yes, it is well written,
Uh-huh.
but darn, you have to put the footnotes in the middle of it all the time. Make an assertion, Leviticus 19, something. Make another assertion, Deuteronomy 24, this. Make another assertion, Matthew 16, that.
Yeah.
It's like bumps on a smooth road. And so this is a stylistic point rather than a theological point
Content,
in it.
yeah.
But it does make it appear that everything we do has a root in the Bible. Rather, is there any truth that's not in the Bible? Perhaps, but we don't necessarily refer to that, or at least when we hit a biblical thing, we put the bump in the road. Thank you.
Okay. Any recommendations for how to deal with that stylistically? Footnotes at the end?
Footnotes at the end, at the bottom or at the end.
Yeah, okay.
Bob Giroux,
Bob.
I note that in the framing of this is not, it is a call to action in a sense. It is a saying, this is what we believe faithful people will do.
Mm-hmm.
So there's work to this.
Yes.
But what I appreciate is our call to receive and celebrate blessings. That in fact, reaching out to strangers it increases a diversity of viewpoints, increases a diversity of our understanding of the world we live in and others' insights into that world. So I appreciate that.
Which requires of us what? Humility, right? We just maybe don't know as much as we think we do. I'm playing on one of my U of Chicago teachers, Paul Ricoeur, who made famous the term hermeneutics of suspicion. Namely, we ought to be suspicious of our own attempts to justify our beliefs and our behavior. So Marx, Nietzsche, and Freud were his favorites. Three folks who taught us to be suspicious about what we take to be true. Marx, in the case of our socioeconomic status. Freud, our family upbringing, psychology, right? Psychological factors. And Nietzsche, just plain will to power. That's what's really going on. People say this is true. They're just will to power. So Ricoeur required that we read all those folks and take that stuff seriously.
I'm Larry Schuyler. I'm a card-carried member of the Microphone Deliverers. And so I need to say, remind you that we are streaming and recording, and we thank you for the use of your name.
So Dave Myers, and people have spoken about their appreciation for its relevance to today.
Yeah.
But it's not quite as relevant to the real questions of today as I might wish, although it was written a couple of years ago.
Right.
Should there be secure borders? Should we deport those who don't respect those secure borders? Those are the issues that are being debated. How should we treat people as a government who have violated our secure borders? And so does it have anything to say to those questions, even while commending our respecting and loving those strangers who are among us?
As always, great question from my next-door neighbor. Any comments? I don't have any extra. We didn't talk directly about that in the Theology Commission.
Okay, so
maybe that's the next thing we ought to take on.
It really doesn't attempt to speak to the immigration issues.
Not directly.
Okay, and then that's okay. I mean, that doesn't have to be its purpose. It could have a different purpose, and I accept it.
Judy Vanderwilt, again.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that relating to what Dave says, underneath all of this is still a need for immigration reform. And we're still struggling with having rules and legislation that protect all people. And so it seems to me that that's another point that needs to be addressed in all the immigration issues, among all the immigration issues.
We may very well be taking that up next meeting. I haven't seen the agenda yet, but
since this is all grounded in Scripture, okay. Since it's most of the paper, or much of the paper apparently, is grounded in Scripture, I'm wondering if there are any scriptural references that can speak to us about guarding boundaries, restricting immigration. Can you find anything in Scripture about that?
that's a good question. Got some biblical scholars in the audience. Maybe help me out here. Any specific texts that would be relevant? Everyone's looking at Barry.
Barry Banstra, there are lots of places that don't talk nicely about strangers. I mean, kill the Canaanites. There's a lot of violence about people who are different from us.
Yeah.
And trying to remove them from the land. So there's one point there. The other point about the document, it's always talking about strangers. It dichotomizes so severely. Isn't there some way to get over the language of thus and them, us and them, which seems to be reflected? Can't we somehow remove that barrier? Let's not talk about them as strangers. But about us.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah, strangers just kind of has this feeling of fear, right? Anxiety, those strangers.
This may be taking us, Kristen Gray, may be taking us where we don't want to go, but I would say the south side of Minneapolis, they do not consider new people strangers. That is a place where possibly, as I read here about non-English speaking, because people have held on to their language of their ancestors, so Swedish, Norwegian, German, when new people come in, they're welcomed. They're seen as new neighbors, not as strangers. My friends would say that's especially true since George Floyd was murdered, that there was a lot of reaching out and a lot of community building.
Yeah. Thank you.
Steve Norton with another question. I know that this predates the 24 election.
Right.
And so it really doesn't address the issue of the rampant falsehoods that were spread, particularly in the state in which I lived and pastored for a long time, about immigrants in Haiti, from Haiti rather, in Springfield, Ohio, the Somalis in Columbus. How could we address that?
Great question. I'm reminded of the church I was a part of here, my wife and I and kids. La Capilla de Crucijada. I see some fellow former members here, old friends. Pastored by a Hope College classmate of mine, Andres Fierro, Crossroad Chapel, La Capilla de Crucijada. That was an attempt, local RCA church, to do just that. All the services were in Spanish and English. If you weren't fluent in one or the other, that I never felt. I know Spanglish, enough Spanish to be dangerous, you know, but I never felt like I was somehow an outsider because I wasn't fluent in Spanish. So the good news is that the need for which that congregation originally was founded just sort of disappeared. So we shut the church down some years ago. It's a great question. Other comments or insights? The stranger among us, amidst us. Got
This is a
Dawn
couple,
here
Dawn
and then
Volkins.
back there.
This is a couple of years ago. I was having a conversation with a friend who's a member at Fourth Presbyterian in Chicago. And this individual was speaking highly about a gathering that she was part of that was members of Fourth Pres and Muslim worshiping community and synagogue somewhere, and how much they had in common. She was talking about all that. And I heard some self-congratulatory notes in that. And so I pushed back a bit to say, well, yes, but they're all well-educated, economically secure people living in condos around this general area. What would it be like for you to have a similar conversation with those who don't share those same, I don't want to say values, but those same characteristics, but those who might be a fervent believer in the Second Amendment or something like, I gave a number of illustrations, and she reared back in horror, oh no, I wouldn't talk to them. So that's what I'm not saying that about us necessarily, but we're hearing this and saying immigrant, illegal immigrant. How do we put this into focus if I'm talking about the people with whom I disagree on theologically or politically or socially, all number of areas. And I think that would hit us harder because we not in agreement to, oh yeah, immigration, we need to be like Minnesota, which I think we do, but I think there could be more to this here. I think that pushes back on who's the stranger. If the stranger is the rest of us, I think that makes it, gives it more of a punch and more urgency, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. There.
Peter Bogart.
Peter. Yeah.
It seems to me that when we speak of the stranger within your midst, there's some sort of perception there of boundaries. And I think in my own thinking, I tend to view boundaries as concentric circles. And any boundary you make sort of locks people out, but it also locks you in. And at the broadest ripple of those boundaries is global. And I wonder if we thought, if that was our boundary, then maybe the questions revolve around how do I interact in a global way in such a way as to preclude the need for people to immigrate?
Great question. Great question. How do we, preclude the need to immigrate? Dave.
Don's comment was a really helpful one for me because it helped me broaden my perspective on this paper. I've been thinking of strangers in like ethnic immigrant terms, but they're also strangers to us who have different ways of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sharing this week in a talk I gave some research by my University of Chicago colleague.
You're here, UFC.
Nicholas Epley on experiments he's done where he engages people talking with somebody who thinks opposite from what they do about a difficult issue such as same-sex marriage or abortion or immigration rights and so forth. And he has them, before they engage in this conversation, anticipating how awkward it's going to be and then reporting afterwards how awkward it was and how much they enjoyed it. And what he consistently finds is that when he assigns random people from opposite sides, reds versus blues, to talk about difficult issues face to face, they find it a much more revealing, less awkward, and ultimately satisfying experience than what they anticipate. And so that leads me to think about myself, I'm talking and listening mostly to people who think like I do. How can I connect with, converse with, welcome into my sphere of conversation people who are kind of ideological and political strangers? That's just a different way of looking at this.
Yeah. And
inspired by Don's comments.
And be aware of groupthink, speaking of social psychology, right? Yeah, how do we prevent that? Margaret?
I was just going to remark that we joined this church originally, I think, for the music, which was superb.
Yes.
And still is.
I was going to say, make that present tense, right? Was and is superb music.
Steve Norden again. As a follow-up to David's comment and question, what was the discussion on the floor of General Synod like last year when this was commended to the congregations? Was there any pushback or heartburn on the part of some?
I honestly don't know. I don't recall.
Okay.
And
I just
I
wanted,
wasn't
and
at
perhaps
Synod.
those folks had already left the RCA who might be greatly troubled by this too. So
yeah, perhaps. There's a lot going on at Synod, I know that, yeah. Good question, I'd have to check the minutes. Another question, we touched on this a bit already. In what ways are we here at Hope Church practicing justice and providing a place for strangers, quote unquote, at the table today? And what could we do differently, better?
I'm going to jump in on the question, but I'm going to reference, there was a good concern, my name is Jim Marshall, there was a good concern about the use of the word stranger in the paper.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to suggest that term stranger in the paper is important because it calls us to recognize a couple things. First, that if we begin with the premise that all humans are the imago Dei, made in the image of God, and that second, it's our work to create the we with the work of love. So our discomfort with the word stranger is important. Rather than changing the term, we need to change ourselves to create the conditions such that a stranger today is for me a friend tomorrow.
Nice phrase. Stranger today is a friend tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you.
Bob Giroux. I'm going to dangerously put two people on the spot here. Dave and Deb Gensink spent time in Haiti as a stranger, and I wonder, it might be enlightening to hear them reflect on their experience as a stranger in another culture.
The gauntlet has been thrown down. Deb is going to pick it up.
I was just thinking about that because
Great minds thinking alike there, Bob.
when we were in Haiti, nobody wanted to talk to me. The Haitians were afraid of the language difference, and they thought it would be humiliating for both of us if we didn't. My Creole wasn't great at all, and I couldn't practice because they were afraid of me. Same at Crossroad Chapel. Making friends there with mostly Mexican immigrants. The one that I was closest to from Bible study, she wouldn't meet with me unless her English-speaking daughter would be with us. So that's a huge hurdle, the language part. It wasn't that they didn't like me in either place. They honored me and wanted me to be there, but language prevents the close kind of communication you want.
Thank you. Dave's next, yep.
I guess I'm going to go in a little different direction. Dave Genzing is my name. Working with 4 families here recently, 3 from Congo, 1 from Afghanistan. Just the blessing of working with them and walking alongside of them and being friends. One of them has been here 6 years now, and received a Habitat house this past year, 16th Street there by the tracks.
Great.
Husband and wife and 7 kids. What a blessing it is to see that progress and see them work their tails off. The oldest son now at GRCC, works at Myers part-time. Another family, the first family that we sponsored here in 2019, just recently bought a $400,000 house in Caledonia, and they've just been working, fixing up their basement, framing in bedrooms and so on. But just to see these families progress over a period of 5-6 years is just, it's amazing. It's a real blessing. Another family living in 11th Street, just 2 doors over from Pastor Gordon, came here in 2023. Husband and wife and 9 kids. The 2 oldest and the 2 parents both work full-time, while the rest are at Holland Public Schools. But just making it, just really doing well. The last family is an Afghan family that we're working with, a number of us here actually. Husband and wife and 6 kids. But just to see them progress in school and become part of the community, we need immigrants. We need immigrants. We need these folks in our community. Businesses here can't find the labor they need. These folks are ready and willing to do it. There's blessings on multiple levels.
Thank you. And how was it that these folks went from strangers to being friends? You touched on that a bit already.
Yeah, just relationships.
Okay.
Just intentionally getting to know them, becoming part of a small group. There's folks here from 14th Street that were part of the group that sponsored some of these folks.
So churches did some very specific things.
Churches got involved
facilitate
intentionally.
this. Yeah.
Intentionally sponsoring these folks.
Yeah.
And then building relationships and becoming good friends.
Thank you. Thank you.
David Alexander. I suppose I'm polyglot because I can operate in about 4 languages. Is one of the problems of our home nation here that too many of us operate in a single language and expect all others to operate in ours because it's too hard for us to learn theirs. Thank you.
Français? No français. And some of us in the room have learned languages that are, quote, dead. No one speaks.
But nobody talks those.
Yeah, other people here like me learned Hebrew, Greek, and then I learned Latin. I had to read some documents in church history, and no one speaks those languages. My best language is Greek, and no one speaks Koine Greek. That's ancient Greek. So, but yeah, I wish, again, my Spanish was better, and the language actually could be used today. Comment or question over here? No? Other reflections on in what ways are we here at Hope Church practicing justice and providing a place for strangers to become friends? Yes?
All right. I don't have a name tag, but my name is Ingrid.
Ingrid, okay.
Okay, all right.
The mic riders are coming your way. There you go.
All right. So that's the reason I actually came here, is because, particularly when you walk in the door, there's this whole thing of different ways you can take action, and I haven't seen this isn't something I've noticed about most churches. I don't know. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus here, but that's I don't know. One of the things I've recently learned about myself is I don't know, taking action for the things I care about actually brings me closer to God than praying and reading the Bible. Those are both great, but I feel like when I'm actually doing something, it feels more meaningful. And if I had the time, I would definitely want to do more and get more involved, but that's not exactly work. I'm a student, so that's not exactly panning out for me right now, but that's...
You've already got a full-time job being a student, huh?
Yeah. But that's just a thing I noticed.
So, we need to make sure we have those signs by our doors, right? Attract more students. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? Ways we here at Hope are practicing justice, providing a place for strangers to be at our table.
Years ago, Hope Church sponsored Cuban people, and our church sponsored a family. It was very, very nice. And Vern and I were invited to their house for dinner, and they came to our house for dinner, and they came to our church for about 2.5 years, and then they came to us and told us that they would like to go back to their Spanish, or go to their Spanish-speaking church, because the language was hard for them, and I think sometimes we're so determined to get people from other cultures into our church when they really don't fit. They don't really feel happy, completely comfortable here. And the same is true. I'm not about to go to a black church because their way of doing things is different than mine. So we all tend to go to where we're comfortable. And I think sometimes we're knocking on the wrong door. We should get people like us to get to our church, and eventually we'll all be one. But I think as I said, we're knocking on the wrong door sometimes.
Thank you. Bob?
I see our church our outreach to strangers in lots of ways. It's led by our pastors who belong to interfaith pastoral groups that try to assess and impact social issues within our community that often are issues that affect disproportionately minorities within our community. I see it in our Justice and Reconciliation Committee and our approaches that way. I see it in our support for community organizations, including Immigrant or LIA and others, Women in Transition, et cetera. So I see us having an active role reaching out to strangers in multiple ways. Think of Lois Mawson, a member of this church, is one of the leaders of Indivisible. And they're really speaking on behalf of strangers as well as all of us. So I see it in multiple ways in this church community.
Thank you. Yep.
The stranger is often our next door neighbor.
There you go. For people that want to get involved here locally, there's a group called the New Neighbor Network. It's about 80 of us from 16 different churches. We meet the 4th Thursday of every month. So the 26th of this month is the next meeting. And it's just people that are interested in supporting neighbors in this area. Learning more, we have special speakers come in that help us with various issues with immigrants in this area, keep us abreast of what's happening legally. But it's a great way to get in touch with people who have a common interest in immigrants. So, New Neighbor Network.
I was just going to say, you read my mind. Say it again so we all remember. New Neighbor Network.
New Neighbor Network. Yep.
Nice alliteration there. N cubed, right? New Neighbor Network.
4th Thursday, we alternate between 9 in the morning sometimes and 6:30 at night, so other people can get involved.
There's a great book that I read called Brothers on Three. It had to do with the basketball team that was, it's in Minnesota. They're Native American. And it had to do with, there was one particular individual that played on the team, but he ended up committing suicide at 15. So looking back on my experience working with Native Americans in New Mexico, it's one of the things that happened to me was as newbies, what we did is we were herded into an auditorium and we saw a slideshow of children, 5 children, and each one was a little bit worse off than the one before. And the mother eventually died of cirrhosis of the liver. But it was our introduction to what we might be encountering, as teachers on the reservations. So it was interesting.
Thank you. David's got a question, comment?
I wonder if the Theology Commission might, assuming that this does not intend to speak to today's immigration issues and incarceration of immigrants in the United States and the building of ICE facilities, want to speak to that in one of its future meetings or in thinking about the application of this to today's situation. My home island in Puget Sound, Bainbridge Island, on March 30th, 1942, 84 years ago, experienced President Roosevelt's Exclusion Order Number 1. It was the place where the internment of Japanese Americans began at late morning at the ferry dock. I have to admit, I was in the neighborhood, but totally oblivious because I was bathing in my mother's womb a short distance away when this happened. But we look back on that now, on the incarceration of 120,000 loyal fellow Americans, some of whom were American citizens, some of whom were not, with a sense of real regret and embarrassment. And yet we're sort of replicating the same situation in some sense. There are differences, I understand. But as we warehouse people, and I just wonder, it's a really nice statement. Might we want to take this statement and apply it and update it to today's situation? And I don't know where to go with that, given the politics of the church.
Yeah, you remind us of our history that if we knew it, we've forgotten. But for example, the detainment of people in the Second World War.
So, Steve, Larry Schuyler.
Yeah.
How would that topic get to the Commission on Theology?
I will bring it up at our next meeting, or you could contact the people I mentioned earlier, the chairperson in particular. Otherwise, I will bring it up the next time we meet.
I was also going to address that question.
Yeah, Steve.
And I think the Commission on Christian Action would be another logical place if we're talking about what kind of action is necessary in response to what's going on today.
Are you on it?
No, not anymore.
I was going to say,
was
you
on it
used
for
to be.
years.
Yeah, okay.
And in about 1990, the Christian Action Commission wrote a document called Welcoming the Stranger in Our Midst, and it was actually the one that was out on the back of the chair last week. That was the Christian Action Commission's document. And it included many pages of things that were appropriate to do back in that era, but that's many, many years ago. So if you wanted to get a commission to address something, you could just ask them, right? Because they can always initiate their own projects.
Right.
You can also ensure it more likely by having classes ask the commission to address something. So for example, our pastors could introduce this in a classes meeting and then go through the process of requesting it, and then the commission doesn't actually have a choice. So either way, but there are many routes. I was on Christian Action Commission and Theology Commission and Commission on Race and Ethnicity over the years, and usually we addressed a combination of those two things, right? Sometimes the commission, because of who was on it, thought these things need to be addressed, so we wrote papers on it, and sometimes the denomination essentially told us, we need some guidance in this area, so please write a paper on it.
And by denomination, it could be a synod, but you're suggesting also it could be a church, a classis, and the commissions typically take those with a little more seriousness than a single individual. Yeah.
Larry, you're an order guy also. Would this be something that merits an overture from a classis or another assembly?
Yeah, Larry Schuyler, that is what Steve was referring to, is an overture of the General Synod, which would then topic be referred to that commission. But also, there is a more informal way in which a church, just like an individual, a church could write the commission and say, would you consider taking up this topic? Then it's their choice, rather than being compelled to take it. But so there are a couple different paths, and something I appreciate about our church order. We're both formally and informally.
And there's nothing against both of those things happening, right? Church could do something, and individuals could as well. One doesn't rule the other out.
I'm Anna Mae Vanderwood, and I just find this appalling that we take so long to deal with urgent issues, and people will be dead. Does a church ever see anything as urgent right now?
Yes, stop the war.
Stop the war was one response to that.
Steve, to answer that question, there is a provision in the Rules of General Synod for new business to be introduced. And there's very, very specific criteria for whether or not that will be accepted as new business. Preeminently, I would say, it has to be accepted if it could not come to the floor of General Synod through any other means. However, there are times when the church recognizes that there is an issue that must be addressed immediately. So there is somewhat of a provision.
Question here. Lois?
I just became aware of a need this week, and that is that the detention center up in Baldwin is in the process of releasing people who are there, being held there who should not be held there. They are legally citizens of the United States, but they will not release them unless they have transportation home. So there is a group of people, and I think it's called the Overground Railroad System, and they volunteer to drive those people home, and they do it by increments. Like if they have to go back to Chicago, they do it. You all volunteer to drive maybe 100 miles each way, and then somebody else takes them the next group, distance, and that's a tangible way of helping.
Yeah. Great idea. Anyone else? A deeper dive, shameless plug for a book I co-authored with a friend from Toronto days. It's in its 15th anniversary edition, Beyond Homelessness, Christian Faith in a Culture of Displacement. It's a long book, 407 pages, but my friend Brian Welsh and I, we were in grad school together in Toronto long ago. And then some years later, we got back together and realized we were each writing the same book, didn't know it. He was publishing an article for a journal. I was writing an article for the very same journal. We were quoting from the same books. I mean, this was scary. And I realized he was going to go, and I was going to meet him there, and what are you going to do? And we said, this is foolish for each of us to individually be writing the same article for this conference. So we collaborated on the conference and then realized there was much more than just a chapter. And he was involved with some groups in Toronto where he then lived on homelessness, as was I in Los Angeles and later in Chicago. But we talk about socioeconomic homelessness. That's chapters 3, an analysis of that, street people homelessness. And then chapter 4 is what's the Christian tradition have to say? What resources are available, scripture, tradition, etc., to address that. And we also talk about ecological homelessness. Do you know about that one? Increasingly people, according to social scientists, people on our home planet are feeling homeless because of ecological degradations of various sorts. It's no longer a home, ecologically speaking. And then we also talk about what we call postmodern homelessness, the kind of homelessness that Brian and I discovered when we were doing research for the book. People, well, like me, are living 3 blocks from here in a very nice house in a neighborhood, but also describing themselves as homeless. Even though they're not houseless, they're not unhoused, but they still report being homeless. What's up with that? And so there's another chapter, analysis, and then a response. So these 3 different kinds of homelessness are addressed in this book, and apparently it's been read by enough people that the publishers put out a new edition. So we didn't completely write the whole new book. We did, though, write a new preface to the 15th anniversary edition to bring up to date some of the things that were talked about when we first wrote it now 20 years ago. So again, if you want a deeper dive on homelessness in its various forms, I'll recommend one of my books. Welcoming the stranger in our midst. As the church, according to Scripture, it's our job to love our neighbors. I'm just reading from an excerpt from the document. And serve them as Jesus did. One of the most powerful themes of Scripture is God's special love for resident aliens, strangers within the gate. They were rescued by God, healed, and held up as examples of faith and models of profound love. The people of Israel were told to forever remember their own place of estrangement in Egypt in the moment of God's deliverance. In gratitude for their deliverance, they were commanded to welcome strangers. Just as God reached out in Christ to draw estranged humanity into God's family, Scripture teaches Christians to treat the strangers they encounter as neighbors and family. Not strangers, neighbors and family. Thank you very much for all your participation, questions,
you.
insights. It's one of the reasons this is such a rewarding experience to be teaching a class like this, or a class. So you all have provided a lot of insight. I'll take back what you've said to the Theology Commission, and let's keep up the good work here in Holland, Michigan about being good friends to our neighbors.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll answer a couple questions as a former RCA staff person. Yeah, Steve, your question, I was like, I used to be able to recite that answer. Membership on the commission, on theology. The 10 members of the commission must have competence in theology, and it's the responsibility of the Commission on Nominations to ensure that that is true. I will add that comment. In addition, the 10 members must include 2 members of RCA seminary faculties, 1 General Synod professor, 2 members of RCA college faculties, 3 pastors, and 2 lay people. So they don't have to be elders, 2 lay people. But it, like I say, it is the responsibility of the Commission on Nominations to ensure that they have competence in theology. Also, let me read this paragraph to you. This is from the RCA website, by the way, where you can find all kinds of information, including this paper. Please consider whether service on the Commission on Theology is something to which God is calling you. If it is, provide the Commission on Nominations with information about yourself by completing a profile form, which you could find on the RCA website. And if you would like to apply or fill out a profile form for any one of the commissions, you all have to fill out a profile form every single time. So consider that if that's some place where you would like to serve. And Anna Mae, one of my responses to that would be that between general synods, et cetera, the general secretary, and in this case, Eddie Alleman, General Secretary Eddie Alleman, can make a statement and is sometimes urged to do so by staff, by churches, by people, and he has done so on immigration. And you can find those also on the RCA website. Those are also printed in some social media outlets as well. But so he has made a statement, and he has offered a prayer as well that you can also find on the RCA website. And J.J. Tenclay is one of the RCA staff people that we have worked with. She works with refugees, and she's one of the people that we have worked with, and people from Hope Church, like Dee Dee Piers. She was a big help with the family from Afghanistan. So there are, resources available, etc. Also, continuing our theme on home, next week, finally, by popular demand, when we had Haryi Khan and Nick Lorinsky in like over, a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years now, 3 years, Judy is telling me, we had them in to talk about inclusive housing or aging in place, and what people can do to their home to make it inclusive for the people who live there, but also maybe the people who visit there. And we had so much response to that, and people said, please have them back, please have them back. And we have tried to get a date with them, and we finally, for this series, we're able to do that. So they are coming back next week. Haryi Khan and Nick Rolinski will be here. The title of the session is Free to Be You and Me inclusive residential design. And they have worked with Terry and Cindy Veltier de Young, and also Ann Salyers and Bob Johnson in their homes. And so they will be participating as well to talk about the changes and the things they've done to their homes to make it an inclusive environment for those people who live and visit there. So invite you back for that next week as well. Thank you.